Hi, my name is Jackie Ridge, and I'm going to be talking about strengthening writing and spelling for our multilingual learners and how to better implement instruction for our students. So, first off, I want to talk about what research says. This slide highlights three key areas that research points to when supporting multilingual learners in writing and spelling. First, oral language is the foundation. Cardenas Hagen reminds us that students write best when they can clearly express ideas out loud first. Strong oral language strengthens vocabulary, sentence structure, and overall comprehension, which directly supports writing and spelling. Next, sentence combining and expansion are high yield practices, meaning that we are able to get a lot, like more bang for our buck when we are able to implement these strategies with our students. Farr and Daniels found that these activities help students produce clearer, more complex sentences. When students are able to combine ideas, they learn how the English framework of sentences works, which improves both their writing fluency and their understanding of grammar between L1 and L2, between both languages that they are learning. And finally, our multilingual learners will benefit greatly from explicit modeling. Robertson emphasizes that clear examples, think alouds, and scaffolded practice will help students connect new writing and spelling patterns to what they already know from their home or their native language. So, modeling gives them this structure, this explicit structure that they will need, while also honoring their linguistic backgrounds and their cultural identities and allowing them to connect to the new language or their second language that they are learning. So, when we think about helping multilingual learners grow as writers, there are a few key factors that we as educators really need to keep in mind. First, oral proficiency plays a huge role. If students can say it and they're able to communicate it, then they're going to be much more likely to be able to write it and communicate it on paper. So strong speaking and vocabulary skills will give them will give them the language that they need to express their ideas on paper. Second, their first language writing experience matters. We need to take that into consideration when teaching writing and spelling. Anything students have learned about writing in their home language is going to transfer over to their second language. So, this could include how sentences work in their L1, how to organize ideas, or even just how to hold a pencil. All of that can transfer to English writing. And thirdly, the sociocultural context shapes how students will write. Their cultural backgrounds influence everything about their identity, how they view the world, how they interact with each other, how they tell stories, the way they use language, and how comfortable they feel sharing their ideas. We need to make sure we are honoring their sociocultural background and being aware of this background and context as well. And next, access to modeling is essential. Multilingual learners benefit from seeing examples of what writing would look like in L1 and L2. And being able to make that cross linguistic transfer or that cross linguistic connections is going to help them in seeing modeling between the two languages is really, really going to help them as well. So, providing things like sentence frames, graphic organizers, and like teacher think alouds or teacher modeling are all going to help them understand structure and style. Next, I want to talk about connecting spelling and writing. These two are not two separate entities. Spelling and writing grow together, especially for our multilingual learners. So, first, we know that multilingual students often bring spelling patterns from their first language or from their home language. And this is not a mistake. This is a very normal, natural part of learning a new language. Their L1 sounds, letters, orthographic, their sound symbol connections, all those rules are going to influence how they spell in English when they transfer it over to English. And understanding that is going to be a huge help in allowing educators to better support them. Next, when we use strategies like sentence combining and sentence expansion, We're not just improving writing. We're also going to be able to give students meaningful opportunities to practice spelling within real sentences or real context. So instead of learning skills in isolation, such as grammar skills in isolation, we by allowing them to use sentence combining and sentence expansion, we are going to be allowing the students to use the rules they are learning in context, which is going to help strengthen both spelling and writing fluency. And finally, we want students to build morphological awareness. This is like the study of meaning and things like understanding our prefixes, suffixes, and being able to connect roots, cognates, base, like Latin root, like any kind of root form. When we were able to help students identify those connections between our morphological similarities or differences, then students are going to be able to connect how words are built across languages. And it becomes easier for them to identify and spell more accurately and choose the right vocabulary in writing. This cross linguistic awareness is only going to help them see patterns and make sense of English spelling, even when it feels chaotic and irregular. So, overall, spelling and writing are not separate skills. They support each other. And when we embed spelling inside meaningful writing, then we are going to be able to help our multilingual learners grow in both areas. Okay, so I want to get right down to it with sentence combining. This is a very helpful strategy for our multilingual learners. And sentence combining essentially is going to take two short ideas, two short sentences, simple sentences, one noun, one verb in each of the sentences. And it is going to allow students to blend the two sentences together. So, blending them to one clear, meaningful sentence, this is going to help students make purposeful choices about word order and structure, which is going to allow them to see how they can create smoother and more cohesive sentences in their writing. It also supports spelling because students see familiar words used in new contexts. So, multilingual learners especially benefit from strong modeling and supports such as sentence frames or starters. I feel like this is a common theme: model, model, model. And also by being able to highlight keywords and stuff that we are really wanting them to focus on and we want to hone in on. So, these tools show different ways that ideas can be joined together and give students the confidence to experiment with the language in a much more low pressure way. Sentence combining also opens up an easy opportunity for cross linguistic connections. When we briefly compare how English and students' home languages use pronouns or word order or syntax, students begin to see why English sentences fit together the way they do. They're able to start making those connections by identifying it with their first language. That's very important to always go back and make that connection with their L1. So like I said, this strengthens their understanding of English syntax while also honoring the knowledge they bring from their first language. So I'm just going to walk through just a few examples of how we can adapt sentence combining instruction to our multilingual learners. So first, I would give two bare bone sentences. I like to call them bare bone sentences, one noun, one verb in each sentence, and we want to combine it. So in example one, we start with the dog barked as one sentence and the dog was hungry. Students can combine these in different ways. The hungry dog barked, or the dog barked because it was hungry. This is also a great moment to point out a cross linguistic difference. In English, we often use pronouns like he, it, she to avoid repeating the noun. But in Spanish, the pronoun is often dropped because the verb ending shows who is doing the acting or who is doing the action. So that's why Spanish speaking students may say or may write because was hungry. They will leave out that pronoun. So this is just a natural transfer that educators need to be aware of in order to help better support. In example two, we have the two bare bone sentences. The girl ran and it was raining. This can become two options. This is great to also show multiple ways there are multiple ways that we can combine sentences. So one way could be the girl ran while it was raining, or the girl ran through the rain. So here we can build more oral language by having students talk through their choices. So just having a simple think, pair, write, share before writing their combined sentences, this would help students rehearse the structure orally, which supports both syntax and spelling. In this last example for sentence combining, we would start with the two short sentences. The red book is on the table, and the red book is mine. When we combine these, we get the red book on the table is mine. This example is a great place to make a quick cross-linguistic connection. In Spanish, the same idea is expressed as, and I'm going to say this as best as best I can. El libro rojo en la mesa es mío. This a literal English reading of that would sound like the book red on the table is mine. The adjective comes after the noun in Spanish, which is the opposite as what we do in English. So pointing out this difference is going to help students understand why English sentence order feels confusing at first, especially for our multilingual learners. So their brains are following the rules of their home language. And when we make these patterns explicit and we are honoring both their L1 while also supporting their L2, we are able to show that these mistakes aren't random. They're logical based on what they already know. And this not only clears up the grammar, but also validates their linguistic background and helps build their confidence. Now I want to talk about expanding sentences. This is the Ugh, I'm so excited. Expanding sentences is one of my favorite activities to do with my students. So, sentence expansion is one of the most effective ways to help multilingual learners grow as writers. We always start with simple, bare bone sentences, and this is going to allow them to have a clear foundation before we are going to add more detail. All right. So, then we want to guide students to expand their sentence thoughtfully and purposefully using prompts like how, what kind, where, when. And these prompts are going to help them build stronger sentences, develop that vocabulary that we want them to help or that we want them to develop, and play around with how English syntax works. So, this would allow students to conduct a authentic contrastive analysis to make connections and identify differences between their L1 and their L2. So I'm going to go right into an example. I always want to make sure that I provide a visual because remember, when we are working with multilingual learners, we are not just working on spelling, writing, we are also working on meaning and building that vocabulary. So I have a bare bone sentence, one noun, one verb, the campfire glowed. So how I would help my students expand is I would provide them a chart. I would provide them a chart that would prompt these questions. The campfire glowed how? This would also give my students an opportunity to speak orally with a partner or with me about, well, what are some ways that you've seen a campfire? Or this is a campfire. Where would I see a campfire? So then this would prompt, how is the campfire glowing? The campfire glowed brightly. What kind of fire? Was it a ferocious fire? Was it a scary fire? Or if I'm working on a word like tranquil, this would be a beautiful opportunity to help them insert this word. The tranquil campfire glowed brightly. That helps change the tone of the sentence. Where did the campfire glow? Well, the tranquil campfire glowed brightly by the river. I would probably prompt, look at the picture. What do you see? Also, while allowing them to help make, revert back to their L1, in Spanish, this is what we would say, but in English, we would call it a river. And so also the campfire glowed when or where. And I just realized that I kind of did where twice, so my bad on that. But between the two tents, the tranquil campfire glowed brightly by the river at dawn. There we go. So I would add that when. So those are just some quick ways that you could prompt helping our students with those activities. I just want to talk briefly about more supports for our multilingual learners. This slide shows different ways that we can support multilingual learners so they feel more confident when writing and spelling. One big support that I really want to point out is translanguaging, which simply means that students can use their home language to help them think, plan, and share ideas. So when students can lean on the language they're most comfortable with, they're able to feel less stressed and more able to show what they really know. They're not limited by a language barrier. Oral rehearsal is another key support. When students talk through their ideas before writing, they clarify their thinking and build fluency. The step is especially powerful for our students who are still developing English syntax. We can also incorporate things like cognates to build vocabulary bridges between the language. Recognizing familiar word parts are going to help connect new English words to their existing knowledge from their L1. Sentence frames, we know, use sentence frames. Those are very, very, very helpful, and they help build confidence and fluency. Code meshing, I do definitely want to touch on. Code meshing and contrastive analysis both validate students' linguistic identities. With code meshing, students see that using elements of their languages in writing is an asset, not a barrier. Contrastive analysis helps them compare grammatical structures across languages, which helps strengthens both comprehension with accuracy. So together, these supports can create an environment where multilingual learners feel confident, valued, and equipped to grow as successful writers. And lastly, I do want to touch briefly on some home literacy connections that we can help build this. We can help support at home as well. So this slide is going to highlight just simple ways that families can support writing at home in any language. So writing journals give children a safe space to express their thoughts. They can write in whichever language feels most natural, which helps build confidence and fluency. Daily lists like groceries, chores, or favorite books make writing quick, meaningful, and doable for busy families. These small habits build vocabulary and show kids that writing has a purpose. There's a reason we write. And family letters are another powerful tool. When children write to parents, grandparents, or relatives, they connect with their heart language. And I say heart language in quotes because this was something I heard from a presenter, Dr. Babino. She refers to it as the heart language. And writing family letters allows them to learn to communicate clearly while strengthening bond. And again, this can happen in any language. What matters is that they're expressing ideas and they're practicing real writing. Here are my references. I appreciate your time and thank you.